Welcome to the Invite Health Podcast. I am Dr. Amanda Williams, MD, MPH, and today I'm going to be talking about the importance of immune function during the summer months. Many times we put our guard down and we think, it's the summer. We're not going to come across any types of viruses or bacteria out there, but actually during the summer, we can be subject to these types of infections, which is why I wanted to highlight the importance of taking certain nutrients, especially during the summer months. Many times we focus on the fall and the winter and making sure we're getting adequate vitamin D and probiotics during those times. And by all means, that is a really wonderful practice to be in. But when we think about the summer months, especially this summer in particular, because we know that COVID-19 has not just somehow miraculously disappeared, it is still out there. People are still contracting this. They are talking about certain areas, certain states where they are seeing the trend still going up in terms of new infections. So when they talk about that second wave, for many states, they haven't even experienced their full first wave. So this is why you just want to be very advantageous when it comes to the nutrients that you are taking. During the summer in particular, you definitely want to make sure that you are staying hydrated first and foremost. It is hot in most areas throughout the country. So when we succumb to dehydration, this certainly can lower our immune defenses. So we want to make sure that we are staying hydrated. That is definitely going to be key. And then I'm going to talk about certain nutrients to have as part of your summer supplemental arsenal. So I'm going to talk about all of that. Just as a quick reminder, do be sure to subscribe to our podcast wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. You can subscribe for free. Remember that all of our episodes will be linked in the episode description. So if you want more information on any particular episode, you can definitely find that. You can find that at invitehealth.com/podcast. And remember to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, as well as on Instagram. So let's get right to it. We have all been hearing everything about COVID-19, the pandemic, and certainly we should all still have our concerns about this. We know that this virus is still out there, but say even during a normal summer when COVID-19 didn't exist, people still had a tendency to come down with certain viral infections. People would get strep throat, perhaps. Sometimes people say, how is this possible? It's, the middle of July or August. How is it that I have the common cold right now? Well, viruses are nifty little things, and they oftentimes don't care what month it is. So if they want to come out in July, they're going to come out in July. This is why you always want to stay on top of your supplementation routine. It's easy in the summer. I know people say, the weather's nice. I can get out. I can go out and I can be more physically active. And maybe you're not as attuned to your normal supplementation routine that you normally would be. So this is why I wanted to bring this to your attention today, because there are many different things that can impact our immune system. And we certainly don't want to take improper steps to lower our immune defenses just because we are missing key nutrients. One in particular that I really want to focus in on and make people aware of happens to be folic acid. Now, interestingly enough, when we think about things like vitamin D, for example, most of us are now at a point where we understand that vitamin D serum levels have a tendency to decline during the winter months. And this is that correlation between not as much exposure to the sun. And most people recognize vitamin D as being the sunshine vitamin. Now, also keep in mind, just because we do absorb vitamin D from sunlight exposure does not mean that we are getting adequate vitamin D from that. So I'm here in Florida. I understand this. I've looked at enough serum vitamin D levels to know that even sun lovers, people who are out there on the beach worshiping the sun on a regular basis, oftentimes can still have inadequate or insufficient vitamin D levels. And this comes down to a couple of different factors. We now know more that genetic implications can play a role into the way that your body absorbs vitamin D. There are vitamin D genes where we recognize if there's a mutation that can impact the way that your body is actually properly absorbing and converting vitamin D into the active form. We also realize that things such as sunscreen, for example, can impede the proper absorption of vitamin D. So you have all these different factors. So I have had people who spend an ample amount of time out in the sun but can still have insufficient vitamin D levels. But for the most part, kind of a rule of thumb is we do recognize that vitamin D will help to keep people from becoming completely deficient. So vitamin D coming from the sunshine, can keep you from falling into that deficient status. So we know that in the winter months, we have less exposure to sunshine in many parts of the country, which is why you have a greater likelihood at that point in time to see deficiencies in vitamin D, which we know has a huge impact on our immune system. And they've been able to correlate this. They've even done studies through COVID-19 now, where they've been able to see that low serum vitamin D levels are directly correlated with the severity of the symptoms that go along with COVID-19. So definitely want to make sure that every single year, if not a couple of times a year, that you have your serum 25 hydroxy vitamin D level tested. This is really important because people oftentimes would ask me, well, how much vitamin D should I be taking every day? If I'm supplementing with vitamin D3, how much should I take? What's the total international units I should be obtaining? I always say, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know. So unless we see where your serum vitamin D levels, where's your starting point, it's difficult to say. A rule of thumb is that most people are going to require anywhere from 2,000 international units to 5,000 international units every single day when it comes to vitamin D3 supplementation. So we know this about vitamin D. We know levels have a tendency to go down in the summer or down in the winter. We also recognize that other nutrients can have the opposite effect, and that's what I want to highlight for you today. What we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, I'm going to talk about folate. We're going to talk about folic acid and what happens to this very important B vitamin during the summer months and how this can actually have a negative impact on your immune system. So we will be right back.
This podcast is brought to you by InviteHealth.com. For over 20 years, Invite Health has provided premium quality supplements and expert advice you can trust. Now, first-time customers can enjoy an exclusive offer. Visit InviteHealth.com/podcast or click the link in this episode description. That's InviteHealth.com/podcast for your exclusive offer on Invite Health products. Invite Health offers the resources you need to make important decisions about your health. Chat live with degreed healthcare professionals, get product information, and find retail locations near you at InviteHealth.com. You can also learn about our new genetic testing program and our exclusive Invite Fitness Wellness program. Follow Invite Health on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and be sure to subscribe to our podcast today. Now back to our episode.
And welcome back. Let's talk about folic acid, why it is that folic acid is so important during the summer months. We know that certain vitamins can have fluctuations throughout different seasons. Just talked about vitamin D and understanding that conversion rate and how much that can be impacted between the summer and the winter. So we know that. But oftentimes people do not recognize that the opposite happens with your serum folate levels. And in the Journal of Phytochemical Phytobiology in 2019, they published a study, the findings of an association between serum folate levels and UV radiation, so from the sun. And they said UV radiation has consistently reported to cause folate photodegradation in human skin. So they said seasonal variations in UV radiation might explain seasonal changes in folate levels in the blood. So this is key. They have now been able to recognize when they did a serum sample and they looked at the folate blood levels of over 100,000 people. It was 118,000. They looked at their serum folate levels and they were able to show that every single one of those subjects showed a decrease in their folate concentration in the summer. every single one of those samples. A decrease in the folate level. Over 100,000 people that they sampled. And they saw that folate deficiency was 1.37 times greater in the summer as opposed to the winter. So this is something that I think is really quite critical. Now, there was a second study where they were looking once again at the potential development of a folate deficiency. And in the second study, they found that during the summer, there was 3.32 more likely to develop a folate deficiency as opposed to the winter. So we know vitamin D, you're more likely to have a deficiency in the winter, but folate, you are more likely to have a deficiency during the summer. Now, there are many different factors that can influence our immune system throughout seasonal changes. We know that even things such as temperature, environmental factors can have a hindrance on our immune system. That's why they talk about during the winter months when people are spending more time inside and we have a lower humidity. So that drier air is a kind of just a breeding ground for the potential for viruses to stay in the system much, much longer. So that can be a problem, which is why you see a more pronounced spread of different viruses during the winter. But we also realize that during hot summer months, this can actually throw off our immune cells. We recognize that your lymphocyte levels, your monocyte levels can be altered because of the heat. And so once again, it's these fluctuations or these variations that can occur that can actually have a negative impact. We have to think about things like oxidative stress. These are things that certainly can occur in the summer months. If someone is out and they're exposed to more sunlight and there's more humidity and the body is trying to adjust to that, we can actually develop internal higher rates of oxidative stress. So if we are not taking adequate amounts of antioxidants, then this can have a hindrance once again on the way that the immune system is going to respond. So now let's go back and let's talk about the role of folate. When we think about folate, we think about folic acid. Remember, when you are supplementing, ideally you want to be supplementing with the active form of folic acid, which is methylfolate. That is going to be the most important way for you to obtain supplementation folic acid. So it's methylfolate is really the key. And we know that folate is a water-soluble vitamin, and it is present in certain foods. We understand that there are active forms, and that is that methylfolate. That is going to be your biologically active form. But we also have to recognize all of the different functions of folate. This is why they always tell women who are pregnant that they need higher amounts of folic acid, because we know that this is playing an integral role in terms of the neurological development of the child. So we know folate is really quite important. We recognize that we have to have folate when it comes to proper cell division. So even when we're talking about our DNA, cellular DNA, that genetic material, we understand that to be incredibly important. So that synthesis of nucleic acids is reliant on folate. We also see how folate plays a role in key pathways in the body. And when we talk about our immune system, this is one area that we certainly don't want to overlook. So let's talk a little bit about what exactly folate is doing when it comes to our immune system. Remember, we have our innate and we have our adaptive. So the innate immune system, that is the immediate response. And this would include things like your skin, the GI tract, respiratory tract. These are physical barriers to any type of a pathogen. Then we have our adaptive, also known as the acquired immune system. This includes things like your B cells, your T cells. These are things that take longer in terms of their development to be able to respond to different pathogens. So we develop that one over time. It's highly specific, whereas our innate immune system, that immediate response, that's not specific. It's going to try to defend against anything that the body recognizes as foreign, and it happens relatively fast. We're talking within minutes or within hours, whereas our acquired immune system, that's a much slower process. It's going to occur over a period of days. It's not instantaneous. So when we look at folate and we look at how it is playing a role in both the innate as well as in the adaptive immune response, we have to recognize its true importance. We know that folate is required to maintain the innate immunity natural killer cells. So if we don't have adequate folate, we are not going to be able to have that quick response of those natural killer cells. We also see that when it comes to that acquired or adaptive immune response, that folate plays an incredibly important role in the cell-mediated immunity. So it's very important for sufficient antibody response to different antigens. We also see that folate plays a role when it comes to your T helper mediated immune response. So a lot of this is oftentimes overlooked. When we talk about the immune system, for many people, they're kind of flabbergasted that all of these different vitamins and minerals are so essential. And if we're low in things like folate or in selenium or in B12, most people know zinc and vitamin C. Those are usually your two common ones that people think of when we think about trying to fend off the common cold. Well, if we take extra vitamin C, if we take extra zinc, this is a good thing. But not understanding that all of these other vitamins and minerals do play an integral role in both that immediate and that delayed immune system response. We know that as we get older, that response time begins to slow. So we look at all of these different factors and we say, okay, we have seasonal changes, we have the aging process, we have chronic disease states that can have an impact on lowered immune function. So what should we be doing? Well, we need to make sure that we are taking the right micronutrients every single day. And these are things that oftentimes can be assessed when we think about our serum blood levels. This is why I am always such a stickler about having your blood levels tested when it comes to things like B12, when it comes to your folate levels, when it comes to your vitamin D levels. All of these are really quite critical. So let's talk a little bit more about folate, because I told you about the two studies that came out looking at over 100,000 people and recognizing that during the summer, folate levels go down because the folate is actually degraded because of the UV light. So our folate levels go down. That is going to create a situation where we have a depressed immune response. So we can have a delayed type hypersensitivity. This is not a good thing. We have to make sure that the body at all times is ready to fend off any type of a foreign invader. And looking outside of COVID-19, we know that there are still other foreign invaders that can be spreading throughout communities in the summer months. So we cannot be naive to that. So I want to tell you a bit more, but I'm going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I'm going to tell you about how you can incorporate key antioxidants and, of course, the importance of your vitamins during the summer. So we will be right back.
This podcast is brought to you by InviteHealth.com. For over 20 years, Invite Health has provided premium quality supplements and expert advice you can trust. Now, first-time customers can enjoy an exclusive offer. Visit InviteHealth.com/podcast or click the link in this episode description. That's InviteHealth.com/podcast for your exclusive offer on Invite Health products. Invite Health offers the resources you need to make important decisions about your health. Chat live with degreed healthcare professionals, get product information, and find retail locations near you at invitehealth.com. You can also learn about our new genetic testing program and our exclusive Invite Fitness Wellness program. Follow Invite Health on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and be sure to subscribe to our podcast today. Now back to our episode.
And welcome back. So let's talk about what you can be doing during the summer months to make sure that we are keeping our immune system at a ready, set, go. That's what we always want. So first and foremost, we don't want to ignore the importance of just the basics, just the basic micronutrients. We have to think about a simple multivitamin. One that I love to turn to is our multi-protection. This product is a really wonderful way to enhance a couple of different factors that will play a role in your immune system. Not only is it a comprehensive multivitamin, multi-mineral formulation, it is also enhanced with a probiotic blend along with organic greens. So the organic greens help the body in terms of upping our antioxidant defenses. Remember, all those greens, they come with their natural phytochemicals that are powerful antioxidants. So it's going to help not only with proper detoxification, metabolic detoxification that occurs every single day, but it is also going to enhance our body's ability to fend off oxidative stress and free radicals. Plus, we're getting all of those very critical micronutrients that are essential to both the innate and the adaptive immune system. And then we're getting that exposure to healthy bacteria, those probiotics, those little healthy bacteria that colonize within the intestines, remembering that 70% of our immune defenses are stemming from the intestines. We always want to make sure that we're putting in good, healthy bacteria. This is always key because we want to make sure that we have this very developed, mature immune system. And all of this comes to play when we look at micronutrient deficiencies. And if we are not getting adequate nutrients, such as folate during the summer, this can actually lower things. And just to think, something as simple as this water-soluble B vitamin that most people just overlook and say, it's not that important, can actually lessen the body's ability to produce natural killer cells to fend off a pathogen. So just taking the multi-protection is going to give you that exposure to those B vitamins, to vitamin C, to zinc, all of those different nutrients. Now, we can also enhance our summer preparedness by even taking an additional B complex, which would be quite advantageous. We know that the B vitamins play an integral role in not just the immune system, but also when we talk about the way that the body can fend off harmful damage that is brought on through UV exposure. So the multi-protection with the probiotic and the greens, really a wonderful choice. Now, I also say we still need vitamin D. So if you don't know what your serum vitamin D level is, I encourage you to have your blood level tested. But if you don't know, at minimum, I would say a bare minimum would be 1,000 IUs. I said most people need between 2,000 and 5,000, but at bare minimum, 1,000 IUs. So we want to be taking that on a regular, everyday basis. Now, just because it's a summer, we have to make sure that we are doing everything we can to allow the skin to be hydrated from the inside out, because we're going to have more exposure to sunlight. And we don't want that harmful effect of UV radiation damaging the skin, which is why it would be advantageous to make sure you're taking collagen throughout the summer, because we want to make sure that we are not losing more collagen than we need to. We already lose collagen at a rapid rate. Starting by age 50, 60 years old, we've lost about 50% of our natural collagen. And that's our most abundant protein found in the human body. And the loss of collagen not only can impact joint health and bone health, but can also create a situation where we have more excessive wrinkling to the skin. So having collagen on board during the summer, quite advantageous. Omega-3 fatty acids, so fish oil or krill oil, or hey, it's the summer, get creative, use the organic flaxseed powder and create your own little dessert. Maybe do some organic yogurt with some fresh berries that you can get maybe at a local farmer's market. And then sprinkle some of that organic flax on there. Green tea is also always advantageous. We know green tea is very targeted towards fending off UV radiation. So if we're taking green tea orally, either through the green tea TX tincture, so the liquid, or with the green tea HX, this is going to help the body in terms of fending off that additional UV exposure that we have from the sunlight during the summer months. So all of this may seem like it's, fairly simple. Like, okay, so I take a multivitamin, I take a omega-3, maybe fish oil, maybe that flax, I take vitamin D. Is that all I need to do? Well, at bare minimum, that's what you want to be doing through the summer. Obviously, every single person is different, and there are different requirements that one may need, based on your health history, that you may find it advantageous to take even higher amounts of antioxidants. So adding in additional tocotrienols, for example, or adding in additional ubiquinol would be advantageous. Or resveratrol, for example. That is another really nice one to have on board. But at minimum, we at least want to maintain our immune system, especially during this time with COVID-19 still circulating out there. We want to make sure that our immune system is at that ready, set, go. So multi-protection, first and foremost, really a comprehensive way to make sure that you are getting the adequate nutrients to enable your immune system to have the tools required to support both that immediate and that delayed response. So that's all that I have for you today. I want to thank you so much for tuning in to the Invite Health podcast. Remember, you can find all of our episodes for free wherever you listen to podcasts or by visiting invitehealth.com/podcast. Make sure that you subscribe, leave us a review. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Invite Health. And we will see you next time for another episode of the Invite Health podcast.